In the quiet town of Mill Haven, the peaceful facade was torn apart by a dark conspiracy. Clara Turner, consumed by deep jealousy, decided that her sister Elena's perfect life would become hers no matter the cost. What followed was a calculated plan of murder, filled with betrayal, death, and chilling truths. Join us as we uncover this gripping crime story, where the perpetrator ultimately pays the price for their actions. Elena and Clara Turner grew up in a middle-class family in a peaceful coastal town. Their father was a hard-working fisherman, and their mother, a dedicated teacher. From a young age, the two sisters displayed completely opposite personalities. Elena, the older sister, was the pride of the family. Not only was she beautiful, but she was also intelligent, gentle, and lived by the book. She excelled in school, beloved by friends and teachers alike. Elena seemed destined for success, with her career and marriage path set early on. On the other hand, Clara, the younger sister, was completely different. Although just as intelligent as Elena, Clara was rebellious and refused to follow any rules. While Elena was diligent and focused, Clara constantly shifted her interests and never stuck with anything. She continuously worried the family with her carefree lifestyle and short-lived relationships. Each of Clara's choices seemed to push her further away from her family, and especially from Elena. After graduating from college, Elena returned home and quickly married Andrew Carter, a successful and charming architect. Andrew had come to the town to oversee a major project and was captivated by Elena's graceful, elegant beauty. Their marriage became the talk of the town, an ideal that everyone admired. They lived in a luxurious house, held a high social status, and were well loved by the community. Elena appeared to have everything a woman could dream of: a happy family, a successful husband, and a bright future. Meanwhile, Clara continued her aimless life. After years of drifting through big cities, broken relationships, and financial struggles, Clara decided to return home. However, seeing her sister's perfect life stirred up deep envy within her. Clara couldn't stand living in Elena's shadow. Despite Elena welcoming her with open arms, Clara couldn't shake the feeling of being inferior and looked down upon. With a kind heart and love for her sister, Elena didn't hesitate to let Clara stay with her and Andrew until she could get back on her feet. But Clara didn't just want a place to stay. Inside, her jealousy toward Elena only grew stronger. Day by day, Clara became obsessed with her sister's life, a perfect, wealthy, loving life that she had always longed for but could never have. Clara felt like a failure, unable to measure up to Elena. As her envy deepened, Clara began to harbor dark thoughts. Though she wore a friendly smile and tried to get along with Elena, inside, Clara was plotting something sinister. She was no longer just the rebellious younger sister, she had turned into someone driven by hatred, ready to do whatever it took to take over Elena's life. Clara's resentment wasn't just simple jealousy, it was an obsession with power, love, and victory. She had made up her mind: she would do anything, even destroy Elena's life, to get what she believed should be hers. After Clara returned to live with Elena and her husband Andrew, the relationship between the three became increasingly complicated. Clara wasn't just Elena's younger sister anymore, she was now part of the household, witnessing every happy moment her sister shared with Andrew. She constantly felt overshadowed by their happiness, while she herself had only failed relationships to show for. Initially, Clara maintained a friendly facade, making Elena believe that she was trying to rebuild her life. But underneath, Clara had already begun to set her plan in motion, a plan to take everything from her sister. Elena, a kind-hearted woman who had always cared for her sister, was completely oblivious to the changes in Clara. She didn't notice her sister's cold stares or the calculating glances Clara directed toward Andrew. Clara knew her sister well, understanding Elena's desire to keep everything perfect, but also aware of her one vulnerability: trust. And this was the tool Clara would use to dismantle her sister's life from within. Andrew, a polite and successful man, never noticed Clara in the way she hoped. This only fueled her jealousy further. She felt compelled to do something to get Andrew's attention, to make him see that she was the woman he truly deserved, not Elena. Clara began creating opportunities to be around Andrew, from casual kitchen conversations to small requests for help with work. Andrew, always seeing Clara as his sister-in-law, didn't catch on to the subtle signals she was sending. However, this didn't discourage Clara. If anything, it made her even more determined. Clara's tactics grew more calculated. She began showing sympathy for the challenges Andrew faced at work, presenting herself as someone who understood him. Their brief chats became more frequent, longer, and Clara continuously praised Andrew, tapping into his need for recognition. In Andrew's eyes, Clara became someone who listened and understood, something he occasionally felt lacking from Elena, who was often preoccupied with her social obligations and family duties. Meanwhile, Elena's trust in Clara remained unwavering, and she didn't notice the shift in dynamics between her sister and her husband. Busy with her work and societal responsibilities, Elena was focused on maintaining the perfect life she had built. But tension was brewing in their home. Clara subtly made Elena feel pressured and uncomfortable in her own house. Offhand remarks, seemingly innocent situations but carefully orchestrated by Clara, began to unsettle Elena. Although she didn't want to admit it, Elena started sensing something was wrong in her relationship with her sister. Clara didn't stop at mere manipulation. She started planting seeds of doubt in Andrew's mind. She spoke to him about conversations she overheard between Elena and her friends, leading Andrew to question if everything was truly all right in their marriage. Clara continuously hinted that Elena no longer cared for Andrew the way she once did, and that perhaps he deserved more. As Andrew's suspicions grew, Clara knew she had laid the groundwork for something bigger. She wasn't just trying to drive a wedge between Elena and Andrew. She wanted to take over her sister's life, to claim the husband, the house, and the perfect existence she had always envied. Clara was ready to move into the next phase of her plan, a phase from which there would be no turning back, one that would push everything to the brink of collapse. Clara slowly but surely wove herself into the lives of Elena and Andrew. Day by day, her closeness to Andrew became more apparent, yet it was always done with subtlety and precision. Clara didn't want to be too obvious, but she had begun to manipulate Andrew's emotions with empathy and attention that, according to her, Elena had gradually lost. Despite being a man of principle, Andrew started to feel disconnected in his marriage. Clara skillfully planted seeds of doubt about Elena's love for him. She mentioned overhearing Elena complain to her friends about work and how their marriage had become a burden. "I heard her telling her friends that she doesn't seem happy being around you anymore," Clara whispered in private conversations, deliberately pulling Andrew into a whirlwind of emotions. These words made Andrew question whether their happiness was as perfect as he once believed. Clara didn't just play mind games with Andrew. She also took ruthless steps to break Elena's trust. She engineered situations where Elena would accidentally catch her and Andrew in seemingly innocent but intimate moments. For example, Clara would wait for Elena to be out of the house before asking Andrew for help with minor tasks like fixing her car or going over work files. Each time Elena returned, she would find her husband and Clara laughing together, appearing too comfortable, an image that left Elena feeling confused. Jealousy and suspicion started to grow in Elena's heart, but she couldn't bring herself to admit that her beloved younger sister might be secretly undermining her happiness. She felt something was wrong but had no clear proof to confront anyone. This growing insecurity left Elena uneasy in her own home, and her relationship with Andrew began to cool. Clara's actions became even more sophisticated. She didn't stop at creating misunderstandings between Elena and Andrew. She decided to fabricate evidence to make Elena believe that Andrew was unfaithful. One evening, Clara snuck into Andrew's office and placed an envelope filled with ambiguous photos of her and Andrew in intimate poses, just enough to raise suspicion. She made sure Elena would discover them while tidying up the next day. The following morning, As expected, Elena found the photos. A wave of pain and disappointment washed over her. She couldn't face her husband. Silently, she stared at the photos, feeling as though the marriage she had worked so hard to build was slipping into an endless void. While Elena grieved, Clara watched from the shadows, satisfied with the collapse she had carefully orchestrated. To her, this wasn't just a rivalry between sisters, it was a life-or-death battle to claim the life she had always wanted. Clara had come too far to turn back now, and she was ready to do whatever it took to reach the final stage of her cruel plan. But Clara knew full well that one wrong move could ruin everything. Clara realized that her efforts were gradually paying off. Elena had begun to show unusual behavior, and the tension between her sister and Andrew was growing. However, for Clara, it wasn't enough. She wanted more. She wanted to completely ruin Elena's life and take everything for herself. A bolder and more ruthless plan started to form in Clara's mind, a plan that, if successful, would leave Elena with nothing, both in life and in love. Clara began setting more intricate traps. She worked meticulously, creating situations that Elena couldn't ignore or deny her presence in Andrew's life. First, Clara secretly sent a series of messages from Andrew's phone to her own number, fabricating fake conversations. These messages weren't just full of sweet words but also hinted at secret meetings, none of which involved Elena. Then, Clara sneakily made sure these messages were accidentally discovered by Elena, driving her sister to the edge of madness. Elena was no longer herself. She grew increasingly suspicious and tormented. Every time she saw her husband and sister close together, her heart was heavy with feelings of betrayal. She wanted to confront Andrew, but without solid proof, she couldn't bring herself to do it. What used to be innocent moments now haunted Elena, and her mental state became more fragile and unstable with each passing day. Meanwhile, Clara continued her manipulative games. She started finding excuses to stay at Andrew and Elena's house more often, citing work or personal issues. Clara always played the role of the good sister, helping Elena manage the household while making herself available to Andrew whenever Elena was away. With each move, Clara made Elena feel increasingly marginalized, as if her marriage was slowly being taken away from her piece by piece. But Clara knew that these tricks alone wouldn't be enough to end the game. She needed a stronger blow to completely destroy Elena and claim her sister's place. She began thinking of an even more dangerous scheme, a plot that, if executed properly, wouldn't just strip Elena of everything but leave her unable to recover. One evening, Clara sneaked into Andrew's office and took several important documents related to projects he was working on. If these documents went missing, it could put Andrew's career in jeopardy. But Clara didn't stop there. She forged evidence, crafting a story that made it look like Elena was deliberately sabotaging her husband's work out of jealousy. Clara planned to use this to create a serious misunderstanding, one that would cause Andrew to lose all trust in his wife and push Elena into a downward spiral. Clara was ready to unleash her final move. That night, she sat at her desk, meticulously plotting her next steps. Each move was calculated with precision, and she told herself that just a little more time was all she needed for everything to crumble around Elena like a house built on sand. Excitement and satisfaction began to fill Clara's mind. She had come too far to turn back now. The plan was ready, and all she had to do was wait for the right moment to deliver the final blow. Elena wouldn't know what was happening until it was far too late. Clara knew the decisive moment had arrived. After meticulously orchestrating every detail, she was ready to deliver the final blow that would utterly ruin Elena's life. Everything was under Clara's control: Elena's jealousy, Andrew's confusion, and the fabricated evidence that was primed and ready to be unleashed. Now, all Clara needed was the perfect moment to set everything in motion. That morning, Clara created a particularly sensitive situation. She arranged a chance meeting with Andrew at his office. The previous evening, She had spent hours forging additional proof of Elena's betrayal, including fake messages, emails, and even subtle comments from business partners. Clara expertly manipulated Andrew into a state of complete uncertainty, leading him to question Elena's loyalty, not just in their marriage, but in their professional life as well. The missing documents, now Clara's weapon of choice, became the key to making Andrew believe Elena was sabotaging his career. Later that day, Clara organized a special family dinner at their home. After days of mounting tension and doubt, Elena hoped to reconcile with Andrew. She went out of her way to prepare a thoughtful meal, hoping they could rekindle their lost connection. Little did she know, that night was the moment Clara had meticulously planned to end everything. Throughout the dinner, Clara silently observed Elena and Andrew. She knew precisely how each of them felt, and she only needed a slight nudge to send everything into chaos. Midway through the meal, Clara casually mentioned that Andrew had recently lost some important documents from one of his projects. Elena's eyes widened in surprise, but Andrew, who had already been pushed into a cloud of suspicion, turned a critical gaze toward his wife. "Do you know anything about this?" he asked, his tone serious and full of doubt. Elena was bewildered. She couldn't understand why her husband would think she had anything to do with it. "No, I don't know anything about that," she answered, her voice shaky with unease. Clara then looked at Andrew, her voice full of feigned sympathy. "Don't be too stressed. It might just be a coincidence, but I think Elena's been under a lot of pressure lately. Maybe things aren't what we think." Clara's words cut deep into Elena's heart. She couldn't believe that her own sister, someone she had always trusted, was undermining her right in front of her husband. The air in the room grew suffocating. Andrew, who had been simmering in suspicion for weeks, could no longer contain himself. He stood up, accusing Elena of the doubts that had been festering inside him. His harsh and biting words left Elena reeling, unable to defend herself. But Clara wasn't done yet. She subtly escalated the situation by mentioning the recent arguments she had witnessed between Andrew and Elena, further cornering Elena. Piece by piece, the details began to align, painting Elena as guilty in Andrew's eyes. He turned away, looking at Clara as if she were the escape from the chaos he felt trapped in. Elena, no longer able to bear the pressure, suddenly stood and ran from the room. Clara watched her leave, a satisfied smile creeping across her lips. Her plan had worked. Andrew was now completely swayed, and the relationship between him and Elena seemed beyond repair. What Clara hadn't anticipated, however, was that while she was basking in her victory, Elena had begun to see the truth. She realized that everything had been carefully staged, that Clara had used tricks to steal everything from her. That night, as her emotional storm raged, Elena vowed not to let Clara win this game. Clara wasn't the only one capable of crafting elaborate plans. Elena sat in the darkness of the room, her heart still trembling after the intense confrontation with Andrew. In a moment of confusion and pain, a flash of clarity illuminated her mind. The truth slowly unfolded. All the doubts she had about the shifts in her relationship with Andrew, Clara's conveniently timed appearances, the strange text messages, everything was now crystal clear. Clara, her own sister, had been behind it all. The sister Elena had always trusted and loved, the one she believed only needed help and empathy, was plotting to destroy her life. In her anguish, Elena made a decision: she would no longer be a victim. Clara had succeeded in weakening her, but now Elena could see the truth, and she wouldn't let everything collapse without a fight. A plan for retaliation began to form in Elena's mind, and this time, she would move quietly but with determination. First, Elena knew she had to stay calm and pretend she was unaware of Clara's schemes. Clara's overconfidence could lead to carelessness, and that would be Elena's chance to strike. The next morning, Elena decided to keep up appearances, showing no signs of suspicion. She still chatted with Clara, playing the caring older sister role, while inside, she was in turmoil. Clara, confident that her plan was working, didn't notice the subtle change in Elena's demeanor. In the days that followed, Elena quietly gathered information. She began checking Andrew's emails, cross-referencing his work schedule with the suspicious times Clara appeared. She also carefully observed Clara's behavior, noting how she approached Andrew and how she subtly undermined Elena. By piecing together these small clues, Elena began to understand how Clara had orchestrated the crisis in her marriage. The next step in Elena's plan was to seek support from those she trusted. She couldn't confront Clara alone without solid evidence. Elena reached out to Olivia, a close friend and longtime colleague. After years of working together, Elena knew Olivia had a sharp eye for investigation and analysis. She asked Olivia to help her gather more proof, from Clara's forged documents to evidence of how she had secretly sabotaged Andrew's work. Olivia agreed without hesitation, and the two began working quietly together. As time passed, Clara started to notice small changes in Elena's behavior, but she didn't think much of it. She believed she had the situation under control and that Elena was completely lost. What she didn't realize was that Elena was closing in on the truth. One evening, as Clara returned home after a secret meeting with Andrew, Elena was ready for the confrontation. She laid out the evidence Olivia had gathered: fake messages, stolen work documents, and photos proving Clara had been secretly approaching Andrew behind her back. Clara, initially shocked, quickly realized her entire plan had been exposed. Her eyes flickered with worry, but they soon shifted to a defiant glare. "Do you really think this is over so easily?" Clara smirked, but Elena stood firm. "I gave you plenty of chances to stop, Clara. But now, it's too late." The real showdown was just beginning, and Elena knew she was ready to fight for her life. Clara had played a dangerous game, and now, the tables were turning. Clara knew she had gone too far to turn back. With the evidence that Elena and Olivia had gathered, everything Clara had worked so hard to build could collapse in an instant. Clara realized that if Elena exposed the full truth, not only her reputation but her entire life would be completely destroyed. She had gone too deep into this dangerous game, and there was only one way left to salvage the situation: eliminate Elena. In the days that followed, Clara silently plotted her final crime. She knew she had to act swiftly before Elena made the evidence public. Clara spent hours contemplating the most flawless way to kill Elena without leaving any trace, and the most important part was making Elena's death look like an accident. Clara began researching deadly drugs that would not be easily detected in standard investigations. She searched for methods to discreetly end Elena's life and decided that poison would be the safest option. Clara knew that Elena often drank tea every evening to unwind after stressful days, and that would be the perfect opportunity to strike. By lacing Elena's tea with poison, she could easily make her sister's death seem like an unexpected mishap. The decisive night finally arrived. Clara had prepared everything meticulously. She had purchased a scentless, tasteless poison that was difficult to detect. As they sat together at the dinner table, Clara maintained a calm demeanor, continuing to play the role of the gentle younger sister. Elena, unaware of how determined Clara had become, didn't suspect anything unusual in her sister's behavior. After dinner, Clara casually invited Elena for tea, speaking softly, "You've been under a lot of stress, a warm cup of tea will help you relax." Elena, still tense from their earlier confrontation, accepted the offer without hesitation. Clara slowly brewed the tea, slipping just enough poison into Elena's cup to kill her but leave no obvious traces. The two sisters sat across from each other in the living room, dim lights casting a peaceful glow over the space. But inside Clara, waves of anxiety and excitement surged. Elena took a sip of her tea, completely unaware that it was her final farewell to life. Their small talk now served as nothing more than a mask for Clara's dark intentions. Within minutes, Elena began to feel uneasy. At first, she thought she was just tired after a long day of stress. But sharp pain started spreading through her body. Elena paused, her hands trembling as she felt her strength draining. Clara sat there, feigning concern and worry. "Are you okay? Do you need help?" Clara's voice was gentle, but inside, a cruel satisfaction spread as she watched her plan unfold as expected. Elena tried to stand, but the pain was overwhelming. She collapsed to the floor, her eyes filled with confusion and fear. Clara sat still, watching her sister struggle through her final breaths without a trace of sympathy. She knew that in just a few minutes, Elena would no longer be alive to stand against her, and everything Clara had ever wanted would become reality. At last, Elena exhaled her final breath on the floor, her eyes wide with horror as she realized that her own sister had betrayed her. Clara looked down at her lifeless body, her heart racing with the thrill of absolute satisfaction. Elena was dead, and with her death, nothing stood in Clara's way of achieving everything she had longed for. But Clara didn't stop there. To cover her tracks, she immediately called the police, faking panic. "I think my sister had a stroke. She collapsed and isn't breathing." Clara believed everything would be seen as an unfortunate accident, and no one would suspect her involvement in Elena's death. Yet deep down, Clara knew that this game wasn't entirely over. Clara thought she had succeeded. When the police arrived, she had a well-prepared story about Elena's sudden and unexpected stroke. With tear-filled eyes, she recounted the event, looking worried and frightened. Everything seemed flawless. She was confident that no one would suspect her as the one behind Elena's death. For a long time, Clara had become a master at hiding her cruel nature behind the facade of a kind, caring sister. However, Clara didn't realize that Elena's death wasn't the end of everything. The local police conducted a preliminary investigation and initially concluded Elena's death as sudden death of unknown cause, but Olivia, Elena's close friend, wasn't easily convinced. Aware of the recent conflicts between Clara and Elena, Olivia sensed something was amiss. She decided to seek help from independent forensic experts to take a closer look at the unusual circumstances surrounding Elena's death. A few days later, the latest forensic report revealed a critical piece of information: a rare poison had been detected in Elena's bloodstream. This finding shifted the investigation from an accident to a homicide. With this discovery, Clara began to feel the pressure closing in on her. She knew that continued police investigation could expose the secrets she had so carefully hidden. Meanwhile, Olivia kept pushing the police to delve deeper into the relationship between Elena and Clara. With the help of experts, she uncovered evidence of Clara's shady actions before Elena's death, including Clara's access to Andrew's personal accounts to create fake emails and her meticulous tracking of Elena's personal life. This evidence painted a clear picture of Clara's scheme. Soon after, the police began interrogating Clara, and under the weight of undeniable evidence, her confidence started to crack. The perfect story she had crafted began to fall apart. Clara tried to remain calm, but when confronted with overwhelming proof of her purchasing the poison and accessing Elena's records, she could no longer maintain her facade. The web of lies Clara had spun now tightened around her like a noose. In the end, the truth couldn't stay hidden forever. During the final police interrogation, Clara knew there was no escape. She broke down, confessing to all her crimes. Her tears were not of remorse, but of bitterness over her failure. Clara had backed herself into a corner, with no way out but to admit everything. She revealed that jealousy, greed, and the desire to take everything Elena had led her to murder. She had wanted her sister's perfect life, to take her place, but now everything had turned to ashes. Clara was charged with premeditated murder and sentenced to life in prison. She not only lost her freedom but everything she had ever schemed to take. In the cold confines of prison, Clara now faced the price of her cruelty and deceit. With Elena's death, the small town of Mill Haven was never the same. Her passing left a deep sorrow for those who loved her. but above all, people had witnessed the dark truth about Clara's envy and ambition. In the end, all her schemes were brought to light, and Clara had to pay for the crime she had committed. Thank you for watching until the end of the video. If you were captivated by this true crime story and want to see more thrilling cases, please hit the like button to support us. Don't forget to share this video with anyone who also loves real-life crime stories and leave a comment below with your thoughts on the case. Be sure to subscribe to the Dark Crime Mysteries channel and turn on notifications to stay updated on the latest gripping cases that you won't want to miss. Thank you for your support.